It didn't happen on Christmas. It happened at Mike's birthday. A rented backyard tent. String lights wrapped around posts like someone had tried to make it feel magical. A few old neighbors I barely knew, beer in coolers, kids throwing beanbags like it mattered. Dayton, Ohio. Suburban, safe, and utterly forgettable except for that one moment. They called it a milestone birthday. I don't even remember which one. Maybe 18. Maybe 21. Doesn't matter. Karen had planned the whole thing, down to the matching napkins and the slideshow that looped pictures of Mike from diapers to diploma. She had a smile plastered to her face the whole day, the kind that doesn't touch the eyes. Me? I stood near the grill for most of it. I flipped burgers I bought on a grill I cleaned, over propane I paid for. I made small talk with men who didn't know my last name. And I waited, foolishly, for someone to say thanks. For Mike to say it maybe even once. He didn't. He was drunk, but not slurring. Just loose enough to let the truth slip. It happened during the toast. I was still drying my hands on a towel when I heard the clinking glass. I just want to say, Mike started, and everyone turned toward him. He stood on one of the patio chairs, swaying slightly. Karen stood next to him, laughing nervously, as if she knew something ugly was coming but had no intention of stopping it. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, especially my real family. People clapped. Polite. Then he added, I mean, come on. Let's be honest, he's not a real father, right? And he pointed. At me. People laughed. Not everyone, but enough. Some looked away. Some raised their phones. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." A phone screen lit up in the corner, held vertical. Recording. Karen didn't say a word. Not one. I looked at her. She met my eyes for less than a second and then turned back to the crowd. Smiled. Clapped. As if this was all part of the act. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. That would have been their win. I just placed the towel on the table, quietly, carefully, and walked away. Through the gate. Down the driveway. Into my car. No one followed. No one called out. And by the time I sat behind the wheel, I wasn't angry. Not yet. That would come later. What I felt was colder, quieter. Like something inside me had stopped moving. Like a switch had been flipped, and the lights in a part of my soul had gone dark. To them, I wasn't family. I was a function. I was the one who paid, the one who fixed things, the one who drove everyone to the airport. I was the background noise they had learned to live with, a hum in the walls. Mike had said it out loud because he knew I'd take it. Because I always had. I don't remember how long I sat in that car. Long enough for the sky to turn red, then blue, then black. I watched the guests trickle out. I watched Karen hug them goodbye. She looked so proud of herself. Like the party had been a success. Like nothing had gone wrong. But I was already gone. The drive home was silent. No radio. Just the sound of the tires rolling over asphalt and the pressure building in my chest. I gripped the wheel like it was the last thing tethering me to sanity. My knuckles turned white. I parked a few blocks away. I didn't want them to hear me coming. I didn't want the doorbell or the garage. I didn't want Karen's voice pretending nothing had happened. Inside the house, the decorations were still up. Balloons sagging. Confetti stuck to the rug. A half-eaten cake on the counter, chocolate, Mike's favorite, though he hadn't touched it. I stared at the mess, the evidence of a celebration that excluded me, and something in my stomach twisted. I walked past it all, through the hallway, into the room that used to be mine. I closed the door, locked it, and I sat. For 16 years I had been his father. Not in blood, no, but in every way that mattered. The sleepless nights, the fevers, the scraped knees and science projects, the soccer games in the freezing cold, when his real dad was busy. The birthdays, every single one of them until now. I remembered when he was 10 and asked me to teach him how to ride a bike. We were out there for hours, his knees bleeding, his cheeks red, and when he finally got it, when he finally rode on his own, he looked back at me and shouted, "Thanks, Dad." He used to call me that. Dad. That word had meant everything. Now it was gone, replaced with mockery, rewritten in front of an audience. I picked up my laptop, opened the bank's website, every account, every card. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but something had shifted. A dam had cracked, and behind it was a flood I had no intention of holding back anymore. The truth was simple. I had spent half my adult life pouring myself into a role no one respected. I had bent, adjusted, sacrificed, and suffered so they could be comfortable. So Mike could have what I never did. So Karen could rest. So the house could stay warm. So the cars could stay running. So the fridge could stay full. And all it took to erase it was a smirk and a sentence. He's not a real father. It echoed in my skull like a bullet ricocheting off bone. Not real. Not enough. Not wanted. Karen knew what she was doing when she didn't speak. That was the part that hurt most. Not that Mike said it, but that she let it hang in the air. That she laughed. That she never looked at me and said, "That's not fair." That she never grabbed his arm and said, "Apologize." She let it happen. She always had. There had been cracks before. Little ones. Quiet betrayals. I should have seen them for what they were. When Mike got accepted to college and she said, "You don't have to cover everything, Michael." When she called me his stepfather in front of her sister, like it was a legal term and not a living truth. When she said, "He's not your responsibility, but still let me pay." She'd been drawing the line for years. I just refused to see it. And Mike? He was smart. Smart enough to know the power of silence. Smart enough to know I'd always keep showing up, even when he didn't say thank you. Smart enough to play both sides. Because why not? He got the support of two fathers and the accountability of none. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes. I saw myself at 32, standing in that driveway with a U-Haul full of furniture. I remembered carrying Karen's boxes inside. Mike watching me through the window with arms crossed. He was 7 then. Quiet. Suspicious. Karen said, "Give him time." So I did. Years of it. I gave him time. I gave him rides. I gave him my name unofficially. I gave him everything. And what did I get? He's not a real father. I opened my eyes. The ceiling fan spun above me, slow and useless. The air in the room felt thick, heavy with a grief I hadn't earned but couldn't escape. This was the first crack I couldn't ignore. The moment I finally saw the truth. I had been auditioning for a role that was never mine to win. The script was written without me, the ending already decided. Karen had chosen her son's approval over my dignity. Mike had chosen mockery over memory. And I had chosen silence over self-respect. Until now, something had broken. Not loud, not violent, just final. I closed the laptop, not in defeat, but in preparation. Tomorrow things would change. I didn't sleep that night, not a single second. I lay there beside Karen, the woman who used to whisper "thank you" into my collarbone after I paid her son's tuition. The woman who once reached for my hand in the dark when the bills scared her. Now she breathed easy beside me. No apology, no explanation, just sleep like the day had left no scar. I watched the ceiling, counted the blades on the fan, listened to the distant tick of the thermostat. Every sound grated, every silence screamed. Around 4:12 a.m. I sat up. By 4:14, I was in the kitchen, alone with the glow of the fridge and the hum of the house I built. By 4:16, I was in my office. I didn't move fast. I didn't rage. This wasn't vengeance. It was clarity. Cold, deliberate clarity. The kind you feel when your body finally stops bleeding and you realize you're still standing. I opened my laptop. Banking first. I stared at the numbers, the ones I had ignored for years. The overdrafts. The auto payments. The shared credit lines that weren't shared at all. The first thing I did was revoke my signature from every joint account. Then I canceled every automatic transfer. Tuition, rent, allowances, meal plans, insurance, utilities. Anything that had my name and his benefit. Gone. Frozen. Next, I called the bank. Quietly, softly. Not out of anger. Out of exhaustion. I verified identity, confirmed withdrawal of co-borrower responsibilities, and removed myself from every point of obligation. The woman on the other end sounded confused. "Sir, are you sure you want to?" "Yes," I said. "I'm sure. I didn't leave a note. I didn't wake Karen. I didn't announce anything. That's what made it so effective." When I was done, I closed the laptop, exhaled, sat in the dark for a long time, feeling the emptiness expand. I had always thought I was building something permanent. Turns out I was underwriting someone else's illusion. A life where I paid for everything but meant nothing. When the sun rose, I didn't mention it. Karen made coffee, oblivious, kissed my cheek. "You okay?" I smiled. "I'm good." She didn't notice the new stillness in me. Or maybe she did and didn't want to ask. Mike came downstairs a few hours later, still groggy, still king of the castle. He didn't look at me, didn't nod, just opened the fridge, poured orange juice into a cup, and walked back upstairs without a word. I watched him go. It was already beginning. That afternoon, the first message arrived. Karen's voice from the other room. Confused, irritated, weird. My card just got declined at the gas station. I kept reading my book. 5 minutes later, another voice. This time Mike, stomping down the stairs, holding his phone like it had insulted him. Did the bank mess something up? My dorm payment bounced. I didn't look up. Karen called the bank. I heard the tone in her voice shift. Pleasant at first, then tight, then worried. "Yes, that's odd. He's supposed to be on the account." "Wait, what?" Mike stood at the base of the stairs, glaring at me now. "You changed something, didn't you?" I looked at him, calm, level. "No. You didn't touch the accounts?" "No," I said again. "I reclaimed them." His face twisted. He looked to Karen, desperate for her to step in, to translate. She didn't. I could feel the panic starting to churn behind his eyes, but he didn't have the language for it yet. Not then. Later that night, Karen confronted me. She closed the bedroom door gently, like she was approaching a wounded animal. "Michael," she said softly, "why did you do it?" "Do what?" "You know what. The accounts. The payments. Why now?" I met her eyes, and for the first time in years, I didn't soften my tone. "Because I'm not going to finance my own humiliation." She blinked, like she hadn't expected me to say it out loud. "It was just a joke," she whispered. I nodded slowly. "That's what you call it. But that laugh, that crowd, that phone recording the whole thing while you stood there and smiled?" She didn't answer. I continued. "It wasn't about the words. It was about everything they revealed. I've spent 16 years playing a role I thought I earned. Turns out I was just an extra, and I'm done paying for the privilege." She sat down slowly. Her hands trembled. "Mike's young. He doesn't understand the weight of—" "Don't," I said. Her mouth closed. "You've defended him for years," I said. "I defended him too. But you, Karen, you stood there. He humiliated me in front of everyone. You didn't stop it. You didn't pull him aside. You didn't say my name. You laughed." Her face twisted with something close to shame. "But not close enough. You're taking this too personally," she said, almost under her breath. That was it. The final phrase. I stood. Not violently, just rose to my feet and stared down at her. "That's the problem," I said. "I've been personal. Every dollar, every ride, every sleepless night, every blood test, every rent check. It was personal. And now that I'm done, you want me to pretend it was just business?" She didn't reply, so I walked out. Not out of the room, out of the role. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, Mike tried again. A little more polite this time. "Hey, did you cancel the insurance? My car app says I'm not covered anymore." I was buttering toast. I said nothing. He waited, hovered like a stray. Then, "It's dangerous to drive without insurance." I took a bite of toast. "Then don't drive." His face burned red. Not with shame, he didn't have enough of that yet. Just confusion. The world had shifted, and he didn't understand why gravity no longer worked in his favor. By that afternoon, I knew Karen had checked. Her login screen was open on her phone. She knew now, officially, what I had done. My name was removed. My ties were cut. My wallet was closed. Still, she said nothing. She was waiting for the storm to pass. It wouldn't. Mike tried sarcasm next. So what, you're just gonna ghost us now? What happened to family? I looked at him and said, family has to be mutual. He sneered. It was just a joke. I nodded. So was my financial support. I was just kidding when I paid your tuition. Just joking when I covered your rent. He went quiet then. The panic hadn't fully arrived yet, but the ground beneath his feet was beginning to crack. Slowly, quietly, but irreversibly. By evening, the tone shifted. The messages weren't confrontational anymore. They were probing. Is this temporary? Did you forget something? Are you okay? They still didn't get it. This wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't punishment. This was reality delivered cold. That night, Karen tried again. Softer this time. You're scaring him. I shook my head. He needs to be scared. She flinched. You think I did all this to be cruel? I asked. I did it to survive. I did it because I've spent 16 years being erased quietly, and he finally said the part you were both thinking. I wasn't, she started. I cut her off. Yes, you were. You've let him call the sh*ts for years. You've let him treat me like a placeholder. And now you're upset because the placeholder finally walked off the page. She stood in the doorway, hollowed out. Not angry, not crying, just stunned. Like someone who thought the train would never stop, and suddenly it had. Outside, I heard Mike pacing in the driveway, talking on the phone. I knew who he was calling. His real father, Todd. The man who showed up with expensive gifts twice a year and vanished like smoke. I smiled. Let him call. Let him ask. Let him beg. I closed the door, locked it, and I started to breathe again. Karen called 2 days later. Not to apologize. Not to own it. She called to explain. As if I hadn't already lived it. As if I didn't already know. The phone buzzed at 7:19 p.m. Just after I had finished washing the dishes. Not our dishes, mine. A single plate. A glass. Fork and knife aligned like they belonged to someone who respected where they ate. I let it ring the first time. I let it go to voicemail the second. On the third, I picked up. Her voice was tight. Practiced. Not panicked. Not yet. Michael, she began. I think we need to talk. I said nothing. She pressed forward. Look, I understand you're hurt. I get that. But I think maybe you're taking this a little too personally. That was the moment. That sentence. I closed my eyes. Let it soak into me like oil into a rag. Too personally. You know what Mike's like, she continued. He says stupid things. He was drinking. It wasn't meant to be cruel. No, I said flatly. It was meant to be true. That quieted her. Not for long. He's a kid, Michael. He doesn't understand what you've done for him. That's normal. No, I said again. It's not. A pause. She adjusted her tone, softening it. That familiar Karen move, warmth as camouflage. He's used to you being the steady one, the one who shows up. That's not a bad thing. It is when it becomes expectation without gratitude. The silence on her end stretched thin. So what are you saying? You're just done? After everything? Not done, I corrected. Discharged. It landed harder than I thought it would. She inhaled sharply. Discharged? Like a soldier? Like a fool, I said, who finally put the weight down. Her voice began to rise. She was shifting now, grief to defense, defense to guilt. You knew this wouldn't be easy. You knew coming into a family like this. I didn't come into a family, I said. I came into a house with expectations. I built the family part myself, and you let them tear it down. Her tone snapped then, brittle and sharp. You're acting like they hate you. That's not true. Mike looks up to you. He just has a complicated relationship with who? I interrupted. Me? Or the man who disappears between holidays but still gets to keep the title? That cut. I heard it in her breathing. The rhythm changed. I just think She began again, slowly, cautiously. That what you're doing now? Pulling support, walking away, it's reactive. It's not you. She was wrong. It was me. It had always been me. The me beneath the sacrifices. The me beneath the titles no one gave but everyone demanded. It's who I became, I said. After 16 years of pretending I could earn my place. She didn't argue. She didn't know how. That night, I finalized the paperwork. My name had been on everything. Mike's tuition, his apartment lease, even his car insurance. I was the signature behind the curtain, the guarantor on documents no one ever thanked me for reading, let alone signing. I contacted the university's finance office, withdrew my name from his billing agreement. I requested removal as cosigner. They pushed back. You understand this could impact the student's ability to stay enrolled? I understand, I said. I froze his fuel card. Not out of spite, just math. The account was tied to my credit. My name, my risk. I called the bank. Spoke to an advisor. We restructured our joint account. My funds transferred to a private one, hers left as is. She'd see it when she logged in. She'd know. I removed myself from the family cell plan, from the backup payment method on Amazon, from the auto-refill prescriptions. Took hours. Not because the process was hard, but because the years had made me so entangled in their lives. Untangling myself felt surgical. And with each click, each form, each verification code, I felt lighter. Not happier, just less burdened. The following afternoon, the real panic began. Karen called again, this time with tremors in her voice. She'd spoken to the university. They'd confirmed it. I was no longer financially responsible. Michael, she whispered. They're saying the tuition payment failed. I know. Is this permanent? Yes. Her breath hitched. But he's already enrolled. The deadline's in days. They're threatening to pull his classes. Then I suggest you figure it out. You can't be serious. I am. Michael, we can't afford this without you. And there it was. We, not Mike. Not her. We. The word that only showed up when they needed something. When the bills came due. When the costs outpaced the contempt. I hung up. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. By evening, Mike showed up. He didn't knock. He came in like he always had, shoulders square, jaw set. An actor ready to bluff his way through the second act. But I saw the fear under it. His confidence had a fracture now. He stood in my kitchen. My kitchen. You can't just cut everything off like this, he said. I didn't, I replied. I simply returned it to its rightful owner. He stared at me, unsure whether to scream or beg. I have class next week, he said. My housing is due. The car needs an oil change. I nodded. That's life. Be serious. I am. Dead serious. He paced now. You've always covered this stuff. You've always been the one who wasn't your real father? I offered. He froze. There it was again. The echo. The poison he poured on me in front of a crowd. He opened his mouth, but no words came. I stepped closer. You said it in front of people. You let them laugh. You called me not real while living on real money, real effort, real time. You burned the bridge while dancing on it. His voice cracked. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? He didn't answer. So I did. You meant it the way it sounded. You meant it because you thought it was safe to say. Because you thought I'd never stop being what you needed, even if I meant nothing. He looked down. So what now? You're just done? I'm free. From me. No, I said. From the illusion that I ever mattered to you. That landed. Hard. Karen arrived half an hour later. She walked in without her usual mask. No smiles. No lines rehearsed in the mirror. Just panic, plain and raw. Michael, please. We can't fix this without you. There's nothing to fix, I said. He'll lose his housing. Then he'll learn to fight for it. He'll be expelled. Then he'll understand the cost of words. Michael, please. She said it again. That word, please. It was the first time I had heard it without entitlement. It wasn't a performance. It was desperation. But it was too late. I warned you, I said. With silence. With stillness. You thought I'd never leave. That I'd keep paying even while you applauded the boy who mocked me. You thought kindness was weakness. Karen's eyes filled, but I didn't move. You think I'm being cruel, I added. But this is the kindest thing I've ever done for myself. She stepped forward. He's just a kid. He's an adult. Old enough to humiliate a man in public, old enough to live with what that means. I should have stopped him, she said softly. Yes, I said. You should have. Her tears came fast then. I watched them fall, not because I wanted her to hurt, but because I wanted her to finally feel what I had carried. To see that the collapse was built over years, that I had warned them, that I had begged in quiet, thankless ways for something to change. And now it had, not in screaming, not in rage, but in the paperwork filed, in the credit revoked, in the lines erased, in the signatures withdrawn. That's when they realized. I hadn't slammed the door. I had removed the foundation. After that night, the phone kept ringing. I didn't answer, not because I wanted to hurt anyone. I just didn't owe anyone anything anymore. For the first time in years, I owed no one. The voicemail started out rushed. Panic layered under politeness. Call us when you get this. Then came the bargaining. We can work something out. Then the blame. You're punishing a kid for one mistake. And finally, inevitably, the silence. That was the part no one tells you about. When you finally walk away, really walk away, not in anger, not in a dramatic fight, but in quiet, deliberate removal, people don't chase. Not for long. Because chasing means confronting the truth. And the truth costs more than most are willing to pay. The last voicemail was from Karen. She didn't sound angry anymore, just tired. I wish you'd come back, she said. Not because we deserve it. Maybe we don't. But because the house feels like a shell without you. A shell. That's what I had been living in. A structure shaped like family, hollow at the center. I didn't return her call. I didn't erase it either. I let it sit in my inbox like a museum piece. A reminder. A fossil of a moment when truth finally broke through. Mike tried one more time. Not a call. A letter. Handwritten. Pages torn from a spiral notebook. The edges ragged. The ink pressed deep. He didn't say, I'm sorry. Not outright. Instead, he wrote, I didn't think it would matter. I thought you'd always be there. He told me about the bills stacking up, the cold nights in a shared apartment that smelled like mildew. He said his car sat idle now, expired tags, no gas, no money for the insurance that no longer existed. He said Todd wasn't returning his texts, hadn't for weeks, that he was too busy. I get it now, Mike wrote. It wasn't just money. You were the net under everything. That part hit harder than I expected. Not because it was touching, because it was accurate. That was all I'd ever been, support. Net. Invisible. Absorbing every fall without applause. At the end of the letter, he wrote, You were the only real father I had. I just didn't see it until you left. It should have been satisfying. But it wasn't, because by the time they see you, you've already disappeared. Not physically, but from that place in your soul that used to ache for their approval. That place goes dark, and once it does, nothing grows there again. I didn't respond, not because I hated him, but because I loved him once. And that's a harder wound to reopen than hate ever could be. Weeks passed, then months. The seasons turned without ceremony. The air grew cold, the leaves fell, and the house I now lived in alone settled into a silence I had earned. I still woke early, still folded my clothes the same way, still bought 2 kinds of coffee out of habit, even though one of them stayed sealed. But I felt clean. Not happy, not healed, but clean. There's a difference. Karen sent one more message. Just text this time. Mike is looking for work. He's learning. He's changed. I stared at it for a long time. I typed nothing. She sent another one a week later. You were right. That one stayed unread. I didn't need to see the rest. I already knew. They were learning now what I had carried, what it cost. Not just the money, the years, the presence, the endless, invisible scaffolding I had built around their lives. I stopped checking the accounts, the cards, the bills. They weren't mine anymore. I'd handed them back, along with the consequences. It's a strange thing to be erased from a life you built. To walk past a photo frame and realize you're not in any of the pictures. To know that your absence is the only thing making them notice you were ever there. One night, around midnight, I found myself standing in the garage. The light buzzed overhead, yellow and harsh. I stared at the workbench I once used to repair Mike's bike. The same one he left in the rain for 3 straight winters. I remembered sanding it down, painting it black and red, his favorite colors at the time. He rode it once, maybe twice, then abandoned it like a skin he outgrew. That bike's still here, rusted now, tires flat, cobwebs laced around the chain. I left it, a monument, to effort unreturned, to time given freely and forgotten instantly, to a kind of love no one talks about, the kind that doesn't come from blood or gratitude, but from obligation born in silence. That's the part people never see. They see the stepfather's face at graduations, the man holding the camera, the man who brings home groceries, the man who shows up, but they don't see the weight he carries in the background. They don't see what it takes to stand in the shadow of another man's DNA and still choose to love a child who won't let you in. They don't see what it costs. But I see it now. All of it. I still dream sometimes. Not of the good days, but of the almost, the near recognition, the moments when Mike would call me Dad by accident and then walk it back. The times Karen would touch my shoulder like she meant it, only to pull away when he entered the room. Those moments haunt me more than the bad ones, because they were glimpses of something real, something that never took root. I don't regret the years. I regret thinking they would be enough. Karen hasn't asked me to come back. I think she knows it's too late. Even if the apology came, even if Mike showed up with receipts of gratitude, if he held my hand and called me Dad without hesitation, without irony, without a reason, it wouldn't change the truth. You can't unburn a house just because you miss the warmth. I've rebuilt since then. Quietly. I don't have a new family. I'm not interested in trying again. But I have peace. My fridge is quiet. My nights are mine. My paycheck goes where I choose. I sit with myself now. And for the first time in years, I like the company. Sometimes people ask me if I miss them. I don't answer. Not because I don't know. Because I do. I miss who they could have been. I miss who I was before I realized I was invisible. But missing something doesn't mean you return to it. It just means you're human. I keep that letter from Mike in a drawer, folded, unread again since the first time. I never told him I got it. Never told him it was too late. Because some lessons are only real when they echo. And that's what I left behind. Not noise. Not a speech. Just the echo of what happens when a man who gave everything finally gives nothing. So now I ask you, was I wrong? Was I cruel to withdraw what was never appreciated? Or was it the only way to show them the cost of a father's silence? Would you have stayed? Would you have swallowed the laugh? Would you have paid the bill with your name, your hours, your heart, and smiled while they erased you? Or would you have walked away, like I did? Not to punish, but to survive. You tell me. You decide. Because I already did.